Hi everybody, and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationships, and it's by user Stubborn Fiancé. Me, 25 female, with my fiancé, 25 male, arguing over our wedding budget might end our relationship. My fiancé and I have been together for 4 years, and everything has been great up until now. We've always been in agreement about our lives and what we want for the future. Finances have always been one thing that we agreed on the most: monthly budget, not buying excessively, living within our means, and finances including the wedding. He's always known from early on that I love big weddings and always wanted to have one, and that would be an area that I would splurge a little on. He was always supportive of this and in agreement with me and said that he liked one too. 3 months ago we got engaged and things were great until we started the wedding planning. We were just getting the basics done and mainly doing research into prices, and we discovered that we didn't have quite as much money as we would like to have for a big wedding, and we were both disappointed, but started looking into how we could scale back and stretch our budget in the most efficient way possible. Then 2 months ago my parents gave us a hefty chunk of money for the wedding and all of the other expenses that would go along with it, including the honeymoon and the engagement party and bridal shower. All of the good stuff we weren't going to get to have before on our budget, and possibly even have some leftover. The only things that we would have to pay for would be our bachelor and bachelorette parties. We were insanely excited and grateful, and my fiancé even commented that now we could have the wedding of our dreams, and we went planning on our merry excited way. 1 month ago, my fiancé went to visit his family on the opposite side of the country, but I wasn't able to go with him. When he came back from that trip, he seemed more standoffish about the wedding and pretty much stopped helping me plan it. When I asked him why, he said that he was just tired and I let it go. Then, when he got back into helping me plan it, he was suddenly against having a big wedding, despite what we'd previously talked about and planned. He said that having a large wedding seemed like an annoying waste of money, which was news to me because he'd always been excited about having said wedding. Then it progressed to him saying that having a big wedding would make his family uncomfortable and make them feel out of place because they didn't grow up with or around lots of grand things. He also said that his family wouldn't be able to fly out for the wedding, so I proposed that we take some of the money out of the big wedding and have another, much smaller ceremony and reception where his family would be comfortable and within a reasonable driving distance. He said no, F that, let's just have a smaller wedding to begin with. When I asked why, he would never give me a legit reason. He would always dance around the question and cause an argument that was off the topic of the wedding. We stopped planning the wedding and things were pretty strange from then on. We flew out to see his family for the holidays, and they weren't very welcoming towards me at all. Christmas Day was basically just them being condescending about the budget and wedding in general, including opening presents where they would make comments about if it was good enough for me, which was shocking because that's never been an issue in any interaction we'd ever had or in my life in general. The whole day just basically went like that. When we got back to our hotel, I asked my fiancé what the F all that was about. He pretended to not know for a while, then he told me that when he went for Thanksgiving, he told them about the wedding budget and they said that it was too much for a wedding and they didn't want to come because they felt it would be uppity, flashy, and arrogant. When I asked him if he defended what was originally our choice, he exploded and told me that he felt that the big wedding budget was materialistic and ridiculous. When I asked how it was materialistic, he said that it just was, and that he was sick of my materialistic behavior. Again, I asked what he meant by that, and he said that me liking high-end stuff and getting my nails and hair done was materialistic behavior. This confused me too, because while I like nicer things, it's never been a requirement, and I don't demand that everything I have be expensive and high-end, and I don't care about how much money a person has or makes or anything like that. Plus, when I do buy stuff for myself, it's from my own personal money in my own bank account that I deposit money in after all of the bills and necessities with my fiancé have been taken care of. I've never once asked my fiancé or anyone else to pay for any of that stuff, and me spending money from that account isn't a regular occurrence whatsoever. My fiancé even has his own separate account for things he wants and likes too. Then he jumped back to the wedding and said that he finds it stupid and irresponsible to spend thousands of dollars on one day just to get a piece of paper that we could get at a courthouse. He also kept mentioning that we could spend the money elsewhere. When I asked what exactly he meant by elsewhere, he didn't have an answer and just kept saying that we could spend it on better things like a new house or cars or something. We bought a nice house 2 years ago, so that argument was out. We each have nice running cars, so that was out. And we can't have kids, so that's out too. And when I brought all of that up to him, he just stormed out. We're back home now and haven't talked about it because every time I bring it up, he gets pissed and storms out of the room and shuts me down. His behavior in this whole situation and lack of communication with me makes me nervous because something is going on, but I don't know what. If he keeps continuing this way, I don't want to get married to him because I don't know if our future would be like this, but with other things. It's not about not wanting the wedding, it's just his attitude and the way that he's gone about everything. Opie, I am absolutely on your side. And like you say, it's not about the wedding, it's about everything else, considering that his family got in his head. Now, why would they not want you guys to spend your money or the money that was given to you on your wedding? I don't know. The complicated precedent here is that his family can pull strings on him and he won't stand up for you both. So the next time his family has a strong opinion against something you both have agreed on, he might flip again. And that's the issue. I don't think he understands that you are going to be his family and that his family becomes extended family and that you two are the core and priority in your relationship. You definitely need to talk to him about it and tell him how you feel, and storming out is not an option. That's not a way to communicate. And what do you guys think? What would you do if you were in OP's shoes, or what would your advice be? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's move on to the community comments to see what they said. Senora Paesior says, am I the only person who thinks it would be really rude to take money your parents gave you for the wedding and spend the majority on something else? I know that there are a range of opinions on how much input paying for a wedding gives parents or other parties the right to make decisions about wedding details. But if I gave someone, say, $20,000 for the wedding and all of the other expenses that go along with it, including the honeymoon and the engagement party and the bridal shower, and they had a $5,000 wedding and spent $15,000 on a new car without consulting me or offering to give the rest back, I feel like I'd be a bit annoyed. I think you need to tell your fiancé that whatever money your parents gave you that isn't spent on the wedding will be returned to them. I'd be interested to hear his reaction to that. Lordica says, it sounds like his parents felt inferior because they couldn't contribute like your parents could, and instead of accepting it graciously, they worked on your fiancé and turned him against the wedding and you. This is absolutely a hell of a lot more than a wedding. Return the money to your parents with thanks and call off the wedding for now. If you can't communicate about this, if his response to disagreement is to turn on you, I don't see how this is going to work. Redisaurus Rex says, your family chips in a lot of money. His family can't afford to chip in as much money. His family feels bad, but are unable to accept the fact that they're poor and can't match your family's financial contribution because that would make them feel like failures. His family is rationalizing other reasons for an expensive wedding to be a bad thing so that it becomes they won't chip in, not they can't chip in, so that they don't have to feel poor. His family's brainwashed your fiancé. All of that is beside the point though, because the important thing here is that your fiancé respects his family more than he respects you. Do you really want to play second fiddle to his family the rest of your life? Additional information from OP's comments. I tried asking if we could fly them out. He said no. I tried asking about moving the location to a more neutral one. He said no. I asked about scaling back the wedding. He didn't answer yes or no, but started an argument. When I asked him what he wanted, he evaded the question and started another argument, and that's when I asked about the smaller ceremony, which he also didn't want. And whenever I asked him directly, it still turns into a fight. I know that he's allowed to change his mind, and I'm absolutely fine with that. But the way that he won't communicate with me and won't tell me his needs and wants and won't come to compromise, and his constant picking of arguments and evasion is not okay, and that's the issue at hand here, not the wedding price. Since the first time we talked about a big wedding, he was on board and he brought it up just as much as I did. In fact, the subject of the big wedding came up way before we were even engaged. Since always he's had plans and visions of what it would be like, and he never once showed any hesitation or dislike for it. So his involvement was a lot more than just a "yup, me too." He thought about this just like I had. Now, I'm not hung up on any of the extra stuff. We were getting married with the money we had, which would have included none of that stuff. And I was perfectly happy with that, and I said I would downsize the wedding. The thing is that the money is specifically for the wedding, and I'm not going to ask my parents if I can take the money and use it elsewhere. If, when everything is over and we give them the leftover money back and they tell us to keep it, that's totally different and we could use that money for something else, like he said. Alright, well, the community gave OP some solid advice and we got a little bit more context from her responses. So now, let's move on to the first update. Thank you to all who offered advice the last time. I took some suggestions and they definitely helped bring the situation to a point. About 2 days after I made the first post, my fiancé and I got into a really huge argument and I figured out that he wanted to send the money to his family. He came home and I told him that we were going to talk about what was going on, and this time no amount of arguing was going to change the subject. As soon as I said that, we started arguing again and he kept telling me that the money should be used elsewhere. I told him that my parents gave us the money solely for the wedding and that any money we didn't use was going back to them unless they just insisted that we keep it. End of the story. He demanded that we just ask my parents if we could keep the money and put it toward other uses. And I told him that I wasn't doing that, and especially if he wouldn't even tell me what those other uses were. He finally broke and said that he felt it was wrong to have a big wedding when his family could use the money for more practical and useful things. When I asked him what those things were, he meant sending his brother to the college of his dreams out of state. He said that over Thanksgiving, when he was with his family, he was telling them about the wedding and the money that my parents had given us, which really wasn't necessary and shouldn't have been discussed in the first place. And his family started telling him about the college his brother wanted to go to and how they couldn't afford it and really felt bad for limiting him. Then, according to my fiancé, they began asking him how he could go through with a wedding using all of the money that could be used to help pay for some of his brother's schooling and take some of the weight and stress off of their shoulders. He started feeling guilty and they pointed the blame towards me, and because he didn't want to feel guilty, he went along with it and basically agreed with them and told them they were right when they said that they didn't want to come to a wedding and support someone who didn't want to help them, just conveniently leaving out the fact that I had no clue how bad their financial situation was, and also that the wedding was a mutual decision. And he said that the reason he was so standoffish and kept lashing out at me whenever I tried to talk to him about it was that he felt bad that he'd changed our plans without talking to me and let me take the blame for something that really shouldn't have involved blame in the first place. When we started discussing why he didn't tell me all of this and apologize from the very beginning when all of it happened, he just said he didn't feel like it and was going to try to find out a way that he could use some of the money while also giving us both a wedding we were content with. I was, and still am, furious that not only was he okay with throwing me under the bus, but also hiding huge expenses from me. So willing to change our plans without as much as mentioning it to me, and was willing to insult, berate, and hurt me to get his way. When I told him how I felt about all of that, he actually said that he was sorry about that, but was happy that he told me so that I could see his side and we could compromise by cutting back the wedding and taking the rest of the money and put it toward his brother. I guess he felt like I would change my mind about everything now that he'd come clean about everything, but when I told him that the money was still absolutely going back to my parents, he got pissed again because they don't need it anyway. We got into an even bigger fight about everything, and we decided to call the wedding off indefinitely until we can sort through things. But right now, I'm not even 100% sure that I want to go through with the marriage at all, especially if this is going to be what our future holds. Additional information from OP's comments. This was never about the damn wedding. It was about the fact that he was willing to insult me, throw me under the bus, lie to me, make huge decisions without me, and then almost steal from me. He didn't even tell me what the problem was. If he had initially listened to his family and then came back and told me everything, or at least told me when I asked him, then we would probably still for sure be getting married in the future. This is actually a pretty big deal and not just something I can take lightly. The fact that he insulted me and hurt me and lied to me over and over again without so much as even discussing with me to see if I would help him out, which I would have happily done, but not with my parents' money of course. But instead of coming to me after it was all done and letting me know what happened, he decided to go about it in the most difficult and hurtful way possible. Honestly, openness, communication, and support are huge relationship factors to me, and he knew that, yet he still did all of that, and right now, I'm not ready to forgive him. I still love him and probably will for a long time, but these are deal breakers. Alright, well, the fiancé came clean and OP is very rightfully pissed. So let's move on to the final update to see what happened next. Since the last update, my fiancé and I were trying to resolve things and even got into 2 therapy sessions, and it seemed like things were looking up and we were on our way to repairing our relationship, even though it was a slow process. We went in for our 3rd therapy session and started discussing his family in deeper detail and the money issues. We were talking through it and he still didn't understand why we couldn't just take the money my parents gave us and help his brother because it technically was a gift. Then I told him again that we weren't using the money for anything other than the wedding if we even have a wedding, and I suggested that we could use our personal money if we were going to help them. He completely ignored the last part and started telling me how selfish my family was because we were unwilling to help his family. He's never asked for serious help for his family before, and when he even asked at all, I helped them. When I pointed out the fact that all he had to do was ask, but he never did, he said that he shouldn't have to ask for help for our family, but that I should see that they were struggling and wanted to help them instead of having to be asked. When I told him that I couldn't read his mind, we got into a huge argument in the therapist's office, and he stormed out in the middle of the session. I followed him out and we argued more in the car. Then, when we got back to the house, we continued arguing, and he said that he fought so hard for his family because his brother was the last chance they had. And when I asked what that meant, he said that I should be trying to help them too, as it would be the least I could do since his brother was basically their only chance at expanding the family since I couldn't have kids. Then we got into a completely different argument about kids and how I can't have them. Before we even started seriously dating, we talked about kids, and before we found out that I couldn't have them, we both agreed that we didn't want them whether they were adopted or not. Then we found out that I couldn't have them for medical reasons, and we talked about it again, and we were both in agreement that we still didn't want them. Apparently, his parents have been pressuring him about that too, but again, instead of talking to me, he thought I'd change my mind later down the road. Meaning that he thought I'd change my mind on adoption or other ways of having kids. We got into a really awful argument, the worst one we've ever had, and it got a bit physical. He threw a glass at me, so I threw one back, and then he grabbed me and threw me on the ground, and I kicked him to make him let go. We were both wrong in doing this and it never should have happened. Then I kicked him out and we officially ended our relationship the day after. I'm not sure what we're going to do about the house situation. It's in my name, but he doesn't really have anywhere to go. But I do know that our relationship is over for now, if not forever. You know what, OP? This is a good ending, apart from that getting physical part which, like you said, shouldn't have happened. Instead of coming to you with all of these problems and actually communicating with you about them, he just let his family get in between the both of you. So I do believe that you're much better off without this guy. Good for you, and all the best in the future, OP. Thanks for sharing. And it's that time that we've reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. I really did enjoy reading them to you. So if you did, then don't be shy and go ahead and give the video a like. And don't forget to subscribe or even share this video with people that you might think will enjoy my storytelling. Also, if you have the time, go down to the video description and check out all the links I have for you, from our Discord community to my channel merch. And finally, I'd like to say thank you for watching. It really means a lot to me that you enjoy my videos. And having said all that, I'll see you guys in the next video.